All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday. This is Mark Wilson here in Tallahassee, Florida Chamber headquarters, and on the other side of the room with me is Dr. Jerry Parrish. We'll be tag teaming this again today. Today happens to be day 85 since Florida's first confirmed COVID-19 case. It's a big week, it's a busy week, it's a short week, and today happens to be our 9th week in a row of spending an hour together, learning from all of you and trying to organize the relaunch of Florida together. So we have quite a bit to cover today, and the most important part of today is, again, going to be our information exchange via the Q&A feature. And so we'll use that as we go through here. Also want to once again thank Tammy Bracewell and our partners at FACP. I've just been blown away at how many of you are working together and stealing each other's ideas in a good way. I think that's going to advantage Florida. And so with that said, I'm going to dig right in. And again, the last couple of weeks, I know we've had some guest speakers. One of the most important parts of our time together is our feedback. So get ready to use that Q&A feature as we go throughout here as well. So here's the agenda that we're going to follow today. I know this is very much like what we've done in weeks past. Quite a number of you, I think in the neighborhood of 30 of you via our Chamber Strong conversation, about 30 of you have already embedded the county level Florida scorecard into your websites. And so I want to thank you for that, but I also want to show you what that looks like today. And then we're going to ask you to do more of that with us over the coming weeks, and especially if we've missed your chamber somehow, we want to make sure that we capture it, because on this Friday we have a statewide webinar, and we really want to show off your good work, what you're doing at the local level. So this is what this is what the agenda looks like today. In terms of what we're going to cover today, this is again what it looks like. Again, the Q&A feature at the top or the bottom of your screen. You can start asking questions as early as right now, and Jerry and I will be looking through that. I'll moderate those questions when we get to that part of our program today. I mentioned that it's a big week. Again, it's day 85 since our first COVID case. A couple of things that are sort of breaking as we speak. Just a few minutes ago, the governor's office put out an announcement that they're going to be making a major announcement at noon today in Miami. Also, it's hard to believe it was only a week ago we had our DPBR secretary and good friend of the Chamber, Halsey Bashirs, on the line. And remember, we were all talking about short-term rentals, vacation rentals. And since that time, just this morning, there's already 42 out of 67 counties that have already submitted plans, and they've already been approved. And so we'll continue to update that number on a regular basis. I want to thank all of you. Shane Moody's chamber was the first one that I saw do this, but I know that dozens of you are. But once your county was deemed eligible to reopen, many of you jumped right in on social media. And some of you even included #ChamberStrong, and we really appreciate that, because every time you do that, it allows us to jump on and help amplify your message. And so our hope is, if we have 42 counties, maybe we'll have 40 or 50 chambers, jumping on and letting the world know that Florida's back open again, at least for short-term rentals. Also, notice the next item on here that I put on here is that May 18 through 22 is when most of the tax collections came in for the state of Florida for the month of April. And you might remember you've actually read quite a bit of news about how revenues are down for Florida, but that it was a mixed bag. And that's because the only revenue numbers we've had so far are partial numbers from the month of March. Of course, they always come in about a month late. So the April numbers are all in now, and we're all waiting to see what gets released in terms of how far down the state of Florida numbers are. Keep in mind there's almost $6 billion that was sent from the feds through the CARES Act to help government get by, and then another $4 billion is in the Florida Rainy Day Fund. And conventional wisdom is that between the two of them, there will be enough to get us through June 30. We'll have to wait and see. So be on the lookout for those numbers. As soon as we get them, we'll share them. Also tomorrow, pretty exciting time for the United States. Right here in Florida, we're going to launch humans back into space. That's the SpaceX launch tomorrow afternoon, weather permitting. I know the president and the vice president, and I believe the whole cabinet will be in Florida for the viewing of that. So pretty cool, pretty exciting for our Brevard folks, but really it's a pretty big deal for all of Florida. So we'll be watching that sort of relaunch, if you will. Also, it's been a long time since the Florida cabinet has met in person, but they're going to try to do that this Thursday. So we'll be on the lookout for that. And then also just this morning, I want to direct your attention to a national article in the Wall Street Journal having to do with testing at work. And we've been talking now for 6 or 7 weeks anyway about a pending tsunami or a big concern we've had over litigation and a presumption, whether it's workers' comp or other kinds of liability. There's going to be a presumption by the personal injury trial lawyers that if somebody gets sick from COVID, they're going to try to make a case that clearly the person got it at work or because of work. And as silly as that sounds, nonetheless, it's, we live in a state where we have the 5th worst legal climate in the United States. And so we're going to be on the lookout for that in the coming weeks. In fact, we'll talk more about this next Tuesday in terms of employer-based testing and whether that's going to become something that we have to be concerned about or whether temperature checks are going to suffice. I think everybody knows the Florida Chamber opened back up again, and we're doing temperature checks every time we come in and out of the building, and we're also wearing masks, every time we leave our office in common areas and so forth. So I hope you're all doing the same. Okay, so in terms of the numbers globally, we just updated this maybe an hour or two ago. And a couple of things I want to point out on the global scenario here. Last week when I showed you this map, we had just hit 5 million cases across the globe. So we're up, over 500,000 new COVID cases across the globe since last week. What's important here is a couple of things. One, keep in mind Florida has about 14 million international visitors. And so as long as the world's numbers continue to go up on this steep slope, I think it's going to be directly related to how quickly can people travel to and from the U.S. Also want to direct your attention on over here, if you look where my cursor is, you see the U.S. has almost 1.7 million of the world's 5.5 million cases. But look down here, you see Brazil and Russia. Brazil has now eclipsed Russia as the number 2 country in the world in terms of cases. And there appears to be a real challenge in Brazil right now. There's brand new information coming out of Brazil that their number of deaths in the last week is actually eclipsed the U.S. number of deaths. And so it's something we're keeping an eye on. And again, I'm going to continue to show this map every week because it's clear Florida's not in this by ourselves, but Florida is the most important state in the country in terms of international travel. And that's something we're keeping an eye on, and I know that all of you are as well. Again, I told you I'm going to show you this slide until we're out of the woods, keeping, this middle row here. We can't let a resurgence happen. I saw over the weekend where there are starting to be some states that thought they were out of the woods, and now they're actually having a second peak again. And so we're all concerned about this. And in my national role as with the National Association of State Chambers, this is something we talk about every Tuesday afternoon. And again, we'll talk about it today. We just have to make sure this doesn't happen in Florida here. Wanted to sort of flashback, if you will. This was a slide that we showed you back on March 31st. The Federal Reserve had just come out with a prediction that America could hit 47 million unemployed, and we could hit an unemployment rate of almost a third. Again, I just shared the Brazil numbers with you. That's going to have an impact on travel and tourism. They happen to be the Florida's number 3 source of international travelers. So that's something we have to pay attention to. And then also, what's going to happen with the economy? What shape is the recovery? We're not at 47 million unemployed yet, and we're not at 32% unemployment. But again, I just want to keep reminding us this was the Federal Reserve's early numbers, and obviously we're keeping track of that. Now what I want to do is I want to remind everybody, this is what the FloridaScorecard.org looks like on the COVID tracker. And again, right up here, all you have to do is, from our site anyway, you can go find your county. You'll see we've lost over 1 million jobs over the last year, but this number right here is hugely important. In a couple of days, we're going to hit 1 million tests in Florida that have been conducted since this started. And this number here, you'll want to be green, because for us to keep moving through the White House's gating criteria, we need the numbers to continue to go down. What I want to show you now, I'm just going to hit fast forward as fast as I can here, but we wanted to honor all of you who took us up on the offer to, on a complimentary basis, we put some code together where you can add your own county to your website. And my idea was, I promised that those of you who did that we wanted to show off what your website looked like. The problem is so many of you have done that I'm just going to have to go 100 miles an hour. It's just awesome to know that you've done this. We actually have a university in the Panhandle who actually added 10 counties to their site. And so it's really neat to see how many people are using this. And again, this is really important because you want to see your numbers go in the right direction. So I'm just going to quickly walk through here. There's too many of them for me to even mention, but I want you to get a flavor of who across the state is using this. And again, we just made this available to you a week ago. So the fact that we already have 30-some of you who've already added this to your site's awesome. Hopefully we can double this by next week's meeting. We'd like to get all 67 counties covered so that the business community in each county has a source through their local chamber of commerce to see, how are we doing and are we trending in the right direction. So again, there's Walton, here we go with Brevard, again, pretty cool rocket launch coming up here. Here we go with Polk County. Again, I'm just going to thumb through these. We just don't have time, but many of you will recognize different websites from important local chambers all over Florida. Sue Dick, thanks for adding this. We got, again, Mark, thanks for adding this. I'm just going to keep on going, but everybody can see how this looks throughout the state. I'm just going to keep on going here, and actually I'm going to stop there. For those of you who are interested in, if you don't see your chamber there, and if you've already added this to your chamber site and we just missed it, by all means let us know. You can just email Jerry at jparish@flfoundation.org, or if you're interested in adding this to your site and you don't see it yet, or you don't know how to do it yet and you want to know how to embed it, just email Jerry, and Tracy, Jerry, one of our teammates, will get back in touch with you right away. Also, I want to thank many of you because you've also added video to your site. And here we have, I think this is the Citrus County Chamber. They've done a really good job on their website of really sort of compartmentalizing, where to go, which restaurants are open in the community, who's got to go, what retail stores are open. It's really a neat deal. Thanks for sharing that with us, Citrus. And then also, John, thanks for sending your video. We've got two chambers working together here, talking to their local community about how they've opened safely. So thanks, John. Thanks, Dirk, for sharing that with us. And then also in the Chamber Strong category, we have another couple of videos here. And again, we'll link all these when we send them out to you. Some of you are turning to again, here's a play on Chamber Strong in Indian River. Some of you are using social media on a pretty regular basis. In fact, most all of you are using it daily, and I'll show you that poll number in just a minute. Let me pivot now. I mentioned the litigation concerns that we have. Again, this is a national concern that's going on, and so we're working with Congress to try to get a national solution. I talked to a future Senate president in Florida this morning before this call, and as much as I'd like to say that there would be a special session to deal with this, many other states are in fact enacting state-level litigation protections for business, but many of them are actually in session, or they came back in for a special session because they had budget issues and so forth. I do not see a special session in the short term. And I know Governor DeSantis is such a fan of protecting small businesses. I know that if he had the power to do this by executive order, I believe he would. But most constitutional experts just say that a governor doesn't have the ability to do that. So we are working on another sign-on letter, a national letter, so be on the lookout for opportunities to sign on there. I want to speak for a minute about child care. And again, in my role as the national chair for the National Association of State Chambers, we've been having a number of conversations lately together with the U.S. Chamber about this crisis that America has of, how do you send everybody back to work if there's no child care available? And we'll talk more about that in a minute. We actually are going to have a statewide webinar later this week. You all are invited to participate in this. I know many of you have private child care providers, and some of them, unfortunately, may not make it through this crisis. But again, it's going to be hard to send people back to work full-time if, in fact, our child care system is not fully up to speed. So some of you may know Vance Lupus. Representative Vance Lupus not only serves in the Florida legislature, he's also on our board of our foundation, and he happens to be the CEO of the Children's Movement of Florida. And then again, Chris and Madeline will both be on the call with me as well. So I hope you can join that call later this week. If you're leading through your local relaunch and restart efforts, if you're leading the conversation about child care in your community, I hope you'll join this call and participate fully in the Q&A section we'll have there as well. And then Friday afternoon, we're going to do another one of our statewide webinars for businesses throughout Florida. Keep in mind, the governor's making an announcement today in Miami, and then there's a cabinet meeting on Thursday. Hopefully all of the tax numbers will be unveiled by then. So on Friday afternoon, we'll be doing a pretty big roll-up of what are all the things we know about where we are in the phases, what's left to do. We're going to show off all of what the local chambers are doing under the hashtag Chamber Strong movement. My goal Friday is to give all of our members an update on where Florida stands and where we're going, but I also want to make it very clear to Florida Chamber members that they need to support their local chambers because, absent the C6 provisions from Congress right now, what we really need is a shot in the arm from businesses that are able to do more through their local chamber right now, and that'll be a big part of my message on Friday. Now, as we do every week, I want to turn to be a mirror for you. We asked you a bunch of questions, and you gave us some answers, and so here's what you said. So, this has to do with, do your members have enough PPE? Here's what's interesting. Only 2 weeks ago, only 15% of you said your members had what they needed. And we were all doing a lot of information sharing about where to get things and who's doing what. And look what's happened just in 2 weeks. Now, almost 2/3 of you say that your members have what they need, and that no number's way down. The Florida Chamber Safety Council is in a position to try to help you identify where to get PPEs. We can't help you in every case, but if you wanted to contact Diego Sanchez, he's our trainer. He's been trying to help companies identify what their risk level is through OSHA, but also trying to connect to PPEs. And so no promises here, but we're certainly willing to try to help if we can. And then also, let me just give me a second here. Let me go back one. Okay. Are you engaged in social media? Look at this. 94% of you are engaged in social media on a daily basis. And I think Troy McClellan was the only one that said, "What's social media?" All right. Assuming that our universities are going back this fall, and now we now know that they are, what we're looking at doing in conjunction with the Florida Chamber Safety Council is taking everything we know about businesses safely opening and working with the universities. For those of you, like Eric in Gainesville and Sue here in Tallahassee, we've already had some of these preliminary conversations. But for those of you who are in university towns or university settings, look for some extra communication from us later. We want to make sure we're arming you with everything that we have so you can have it and you can help not only your university, your faculty, and your students, but you can help your chamber members show the universities that your chamber members are ready and safe to take those faculty and those students back when they come back this fall. And again, this has to do with C6s being added into a fourth round. And again, almost 80% of you said that you'll take advantage of this loan grant if, in fact, we're successful to being able to add it into the fourth round. This has to do with, can we count on you to sign on to our federal letter asking for safe harbor protections? Again, this is limited to COVID-19, and this is to protect your members from frivolous lawsuits. Again, the assumption is going to be anybody who gets sick. The assumption by the personal injury trial lawyers is going to be, well, it had to happen at work. Even if your employees weren't at work, it must be work's fault. And so we're trying to put some very targeted and very timely protections in place for companies who are doing all the right things. So thanks for all of you who said yes to that. And then also, what are you looking for from our webinars? Chamber Strong update and the congressional delegation sign-on letter. On Chamber Strong, quick update there is, we're going to continue to promote the hashtag Chamber Strong update, and we're going to continue to send you information that you can use. But what's happened here is so many of you are already using hashtag Chamber Strong in everything that you're already sending out. And so what we're going to do now, until we get into phase 2, and the governor decides when that's going to be, could be today, could be next week, could be next month, that's really up to him. Once that happens and things stabilize a little bit, then we'll more formally be using hashtag Chamber Strong. But in the meantime, every time you use it and we know about it, we're going to repurpose it and we're going to reuse it so that we can try to amplify your message as opposed to it being our message. So thanks for that. In terms of the question, are other states finding success in protecting business? The truth is, some of them are. And again, a lot of this had to do with timing. Some states like Kentucky and Georgia, they weren't quite finished with their legislative sessions. They put them on pause, and many states are just going back in to finish their regular legislative session. And I think if Florida was in that environment, I think if we could get the legislature to meet, I think the votes are there for a statewide safeguard. And unfortunately, that's just not in the cards, at least not in the very short term. So what we've also been doing, what our team at the Florida Chamber has been doing, is inventorying what other states are doing. And we're sharing that with legislators here in Florida so that in the event we're able to get back into session somehow, we already have solutions ready to go. In the short term, the best option for us is to all band together and ask Congress to do the right thing. That seems to be the shortest term solution for the country anyway. Okay, what I want to do now is I want to one more time go over some of the gating criteria. Many of you are calling me and you're asking me about the difference between what Florida's doing and what the White House is doing. And the reality of it is, I'm going to show you that here in a second. Again, this is the White House plan. It has not changed. It's been very consistent since day one. Again, I want to remind everybody, right here is what's really important. The White House plan is implemented by a state or a county, but it's at the governor's discretion. And so Governor DeSantis has clearly proven that he's using data to make decisions, and it's good that we have a governor that does that. Some of the things that I want to remind you here is, as of right this second anyway, could change soon, but as of right this second, we're still in what Florida calls phase one. And if you look down here, bars are supposed to be closed in phase one, and restaurants are supposed to operate under strict physical distancing protocols. Movie theaters, churches, sporting venues could operate, but under strict physical distancing protocols. Once we move into what the White House calls phase two, look what happens. Restaurants can operate under moderate physical distancing. Some would argue that we're already in phase two as far as restaurants. Notice that bars will, again, according to the White House, will be able to operate again. That does not mean that the state of Florida has to do what the White House would do. It just means we're not supposed to get ahead of what the White House would do. Notice up here on schools and organized youth activities, Governor DeSantis late last week went ahead and said that youth activities can resume. So even though we're still in what Florida calls full phase one, the really great news is our governor's beginning to do some things that the White House would say are phase two. Youth daycare camps, the sit-down dining going to 50%. Also bars, bars are not open yet, but once we go into what the White House calls phase two, you would expect at some point during Florida's phase two that we would open up bars again. I do not know when that's going to be. The governor will let us know when the governor's made that decision, I'm sure. And then the only thing I wanted to share with phase three here is that, again, it takes going through all of the same health metrics to get from phase one to phase two. We have to go through all of them again for 2 weeks to get into phase three. So that scorecard that many of you are using is going to be just as relevant going all the way from phase two to three as it is going from phase one to two. Unfortunately, I think this thing's going to be around for a little while. And then what we also posted for you here is the CDC came out with a whole pile of new resources. And again, if you look at the if you look at pretty much any guideline to reopening, whether it's a business, whether it's a community, or I would suspect when the university plans come out, I think that every plan is going to have an asterisk in it that's going to say refer to CDC for guidelines, also OSHA and EPA. So every time we get a new CDC update, we're going to make it available for you. So when we send this out, when we send this presentation out later today, we'll make sure there's a link there in the email as well so that you can have access to the very latest CDC guidelines. Okay, I am going to now stop sharing here. I'm going to introduce Dr. Jerry Parrish has once again told me that he put together some brand new original content for our chamber partners. And so with that said, Jerry, the floor is yours, and then we'll go from there. And we'll get into Q&A as soon as you're finished.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. Glad to be with everyone today. I want to show you a couple things. I want to start today with the map that we're showing every day when we send out the Florida Chamber email. You probably noticed over the last few days we've quit showing the just raw number of cases. That's been confusing people. I actually watched my local news broadcaster talk about this county, and they used the cumulative number of cases, and they said 300 and X people currently have coronavirus in our county, and that's wrong. You know, that's 300 plus people who've had it since day one, but people are recovering. Most of them don't go to the hospital, and most of them, you know, never went to the hospital and are fine now. So we've been showing the last few days just what's the average daily increase. This is a 14-day average. So we're showing that. If you want to know your total number or this number, you can look at it on the floridascorecard.org and click down on your county anytime you want to, 24 hours a day. You can see the numbers. The key number here is the percent positive. Continues to go down. It was double that not that long ago. So this is the cumulative percent positive. What's interesting to me is over the past 7 days, 232,000 of these 909,000 tests have been given and recorded. So Florida has majorly expanded its testing. Certainly the percent positive is going down. That's good news. So when you hear that the number of cases in your county is going up, you know, take that with a grain of salt, because it may be, but it may be because, you know, testing has been expanded dramatically up there. So when we look at the other stuff, let's look at the scorecard here. There we go. This is what the front page of the scorecard looks like right now. You can see the total number, 51,746 cases. But I pulled out the unemployment number. We got those numbers on Friday. That reflects the unemployment level in April of this year. Certainly 12.9% is substantially less than the U.S. rate of, I believe it's 14.7%. But we have lost 1 million jobs. I want to talk more about those job numbers, but you'll see this change again May the 19th, or June the 19th, we'll get the May job numbers. So you'll be able to see what the numbers are there. But I wanted to show you the job numbers over time, and this is a little bit of a strange chart, so I'm going to explain it to you. Look at the very bottom there. That's year 2010. Go January through December, the amount of Floridians that are employed. This is the non-farm series. It's a little different than the number of jobs. This is the number of people employed, because people can have more than one job. So you look at it, every year there's an increase. You go left to right, see January through December, and then go up to the next year. Every single year we've had an increase. You may think about what was going on in September of 2017. That was when Hurricane Irma went through and really knocked down the number of jobs. However, we recovered those jobs the following month. So all the way through the end of last year, 2019, the job numbers just kept going up and up. So I want to show you what's happened since then. So let's add in 2020 job numbers and put the numbers to them. You can see we started out with more than 9 million non-farm jobs, non-farm people employed in Florida. Lost or actually gained a little bit up to February was our peak. and then lost some in March, and then April number you see down there. A couple things I want to show you about that. No matter how you calculate this, you want to calculate it against February 2020, which is the peak. We're down 1.16 million jobs. You want to calculate it against last month, it's 1.06 million jobs. You want to calculate it against last year, it's 1.01 million jobs. So you can say, yeah, we lost 1 million jobs last year. We lost more than 1 million from the peak. You know, we lost 1 million last month. You know, you can say it any single way. You're actually right, but what you have to think about is this is temporary. Some of these people have already gone back to work. We'll find out the numbers on June the 19th. What may be interesting to some of you is, you know, it's also true, and you'll hear the headlines probably say this, we've lost the last 5 years of job creation. Actually, we're about the same number as we were in October or November of 2014 would be the match. Not really a valid statistic. We haven't lost permanently 5 years of job creation, but you'll probably see that in the newspaper somewhere. So I'll warn you to, you know, be a little reasonable. You know, you're going to see certainly we'll be down next month as well. But like I said, a lot of people going back to work now, and it will be, you know, later in the year till we really see where we are as what jobs lost, maybe for longer term rather than short term. If you'll remember when I talked about this and we didn't have any job numbers, I told you to think about this number as a proxy for how bad your county is going to get hurt. It's the percentage of your, you know, private sector jobs that are leisure and hospitality jobs. I'm going to show you the county map here in a second, an MSA map. This was a pretty good proxy for it. It wasn't perfect, but it certainly gave us a good idea of who's going to get hurt, because when we look at the job loss by category, certainly leisure and hospitality was over, it was 41.5% down. You know, that's more than half of the jobs that were lost, though, when you calculate it in that total of job loss. So, you know, more than half in leisure and hospitality, trade, transportation, utilities. You can see these are, you know, sorted on the levels, not the percentages. But take a look at, I kept telling people to think about construction and manufacturing would probably be a couple of the industries that come back the earliest. You can see very little construction job loss, manufacturing 6.5%. Financial activities I wasn't real sure about. I knew there'd be a lot of demand out there for banking services and those kind of services. Actually was down less on a percentage basis than what I had calculated. But you can see that certainly not every industry got hit at the same rate. You can see what they are. But let's look at that on a regional basis. Let's see where the jobs were. And if you take a look at your MSA here, and if you're not an MSA or you know, want to see your individual county, I'm going to show it next. But if you took the Florida equivalent of this number, and this number is jobs, not people working. You know, remember I said that, you know, one person can have more than one job. So the Florida equivalent would have been 17.9% on this temporary drop. And so you can see the areas, the darker ones had the highest percentage hit. And certainly what's happened here is the industries that lost, you know, certainly lost hospitality, leisure and hospitality jobs. If you're more exposed to visitors from out of state, other states and other countries, then certainly you're affected more than just that raw percentage of your leisure and hospitality jobs as a percent of the total. So to see your county, I've also got it here. I've got the lowest affected ones as well as the highest percent job loss on a county by county basis. Remember, this is temporary, but you know, these are real people with real jobs, and certainly April is we expected a big hit. We really got one. But also keep in mind, certainly we didn't have the unemployment rate as high as the U.S. And I think that's a really good sign here. I think, certainly Florida's been affected by this, but not being hit as heavily as the U.S., I think is a very positive thing. And I'm really eager to see what these job numbers are going to look like next month. I will turn it back over to you, Mark. That's what I wanted to show today.
All right. Thank you. I am Let me just grab the screen back here. And let me get back to where we were. I see a lot of questions starting to come in, so while I'm doing this, please go ahead and use that Q&A feature if you can. There we go. All right, some of you are texting me questions. I'm going to go through the ones that are online first. Let's see here. So first question says, can you please touch base about chambers of commerce and other 501c6 organizations that applied and received PPP money? Okay, this one's a challenge because C6s were not supposed to apply, nor were they supposed to receive funding. And so I am aware of some chambers that that did go ahead and apply and did get the funding. My advice to those of you who did that would be to contact your banker immediately and possibly even your attorney, because, you know, a typical definition of this would be fraud was committed. And I don't think anybody did it on purpose, but what we're hoping is that C6s can be included in the fourth round, if not fourth, the fifth round. And we have a number of members of the Florida congressional delegation. Greg Stubbe's a great example of one who've really stepped up and are helping us try to get this included in the next round. But unfortunately, there were a number of 501c6s, and not only chambers of commerce, but other 501c6s that were advised to go ahead and apply under the theory that Congress might make them eligible later and that they would be in early. Unfortunately, what we know now is that some of the regulators are not taking too kindly to people who applied when they weren't supposed to. So, so to that question that came in from Southwest Central Florida, you know, happy to talk offline with you. I can share more about what I know, but just know that if your chamber was one that applied and received, you know, I don't want to be giving you legal advice, but when I called and talked to Senator Rubio's office and others in Washington, it was sort of a send the money back as fast as you can kind of an approach. So hope that helps. I'm sorry if you're in that situation. Next question is actually one we're trying to get clarity on, and it has to do with churches. And the question is, it says, regarding churches, as they open back up, they're asking if they need to adhere to the CDC social distancing, you know, of less than 10 people in a room guideline. I literally already have that question in to somebody that I think can help us out with it. What I can tell you is when we had the CDC on the line a week or two ago, the deputy at CDC, and then a few weeks before that when we had OSHA on the line, you know, clearly the message is to always, always, always follow the CDC social distancing guidelines. I'm not sure I have good advice here. I'll talk to Frank Walker and team, and we'll add this question to the Florida Chamber's COVID-19 site, and we'll put it in as a live frequently asked question, and we'll get the best answer we can on that. Okay. Next question is one we're all too familiar with now, and it says, Mark, some employers are finding that some staff are able to return to work, but they are not. It says DEO no longer sends out notices to employers and gives them the opportunity to respond. Any idea where to specifically send these employers to identify people who are not returning to work and continue to collect unemployment? I appreciate that question from Northeast Florida, and again, we're actively trying to get answers to that one as well. So what I can offer you is we will also add that to our frequently asked questions. I do know that a decision was made that if someone lost their job due to COVID, that's not going to go against the employer. But again, that's not your question. The question is what to do when employees decide not to come back, ostensibly because they're making more or the same not working as they would if they worked. It's a huge problem. It's an unintended consequence. And again, I can tell you in my national role, this is happening in every state across America. And as I mentioned in the last 2 weeks, some in Congress are actually looking at doing another stimulus package to actually target those people to incentivize them to come back to work. It's a crazy situation. I think our grandkids are going to read about this time and literally not believe this chapter, that we paid people more to not work than work. It's insane. Okay, where do large-scale outdoor festivities, festivals land in the reopening? Many have been moved to the fall, but how can we be sure they will be allowed? Look, this is one of those areas where I'm very, very concerned personally and professionally that these kind of large venues, even if they're outdoor, here's the challenge that I've talked to many of you about. Ask yourself this question, with absent of vaccine, what's going to be different a year from now, or 9 months from now, or 6 months from now, or 3 months from now than it is right now? And so, two things can happen, right? So absent of vaccine, we can decide as a society to stay 6 feet apart and not allow large gatherings, or at some point in time, we may decide as a society that herd immunity is going to be the way to go. That's certainly not my call. It's not anybody's call on this call today. That's something that doctors and data and governors might decide. But nonetheless, I am not overly optimistic that big gatherings are going to be any more likely in 6 months than they are right now. And that's only based on all of the data that I've looked at that says across the world, there are no vaccines. So what exactly is going to be different when you put people together? So who knows? Maybe there's a miracle cure out there, or maybe there's a way to stop the spread of this. But the only known way to stop it right now is to stay away from people who are carriers. And of course, you can be contagious long before you start showing signs. So I'm just not sure where that's going to go from here. I wish I was. I wish I knew. Okay, question here says, we're now at a place where 10 people can gather in any one space. Any idea what phase it will increase to 25, 50 or more? We don't know the answer to that. We've been trying to get an answer to that. And again, keep in mind there's what the White House says, and the White House doesn't have hard and fast numbers. They use terms like strict social distancing versus moderate social distancing, but they're not defined by numbers. And then, of course, remember that a governor has the flexibility to alter that even more. And as we're starting to see in some parts of Florida, we're starting to see mayors, county administrators, county commissions, start to do things that may even be a little different. I'd like to see all 412 cities and 67 counties be on exactly the same page as Governor DeSantis. I think that'd make it the easiest for all of us and for our members. Most are, and hopefully most will continue to be. Okay, another question here looks similar to a prior question. It said, I've heard from several chamber members who have employees refuse to come back to work since their unemployment is higher. We're doing all we can to figure it out. And like I said earlier, Congress is actually looking at spending even more money to undo the mistake that they made the first time, which is to incentivize people not to come back to work. It's crazy. Keep in mind, although I wish I had a solution to this, keep in mind that in November, one of the 4 constitutional amendments that's going to be on the ballot is America's first $15 an hour statewide minimum wage mandate. And so with over 1 million people that have lost their jobs from this, can you even imagine us passing the nation's first $15 an hour wage mandate? It's like an anchor around our neck when we're trying to swim. So it's a problem, and I hope everybody's got a strategy to help us beat that thing. Have private clubs like the Elks and Lions already been able to open? Dr. Parrish, do you know the answer to that? I believe the answer is yes. I started seeing last week that, that a lot of private clubs can. I know there were a lot of clubs with pools that could. Again, there's rules around them, but I believe the answer is yes. I will, because, again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but anytime we don't know the answer, it automatically is going to be posted on our frequently asked questions section. We have a team at the Florida Chamber that's listening in on these calls, and every time they hear an answer that I don't know the answer to, they automatically go ahead and add this to the site. Let's see. Dr. Parrish, you may know this. Where can people find out a list of hotspots that have to be quarantined for 14 days if they travel to Florida? I actually shared this list 3 or 4 times last week with people. I candidly don't even remember where I got it from. Do you happen to know where the list is?
I don't,
okay.
Mark.
What we'll do is 2 things. We will add this to frequently asked questions to the COVID site, but then also today when we send the recording of this presentation along with the slide deck, I'll add a bullet point here, and I think there's 4 or 5 locations where we're quarantined from right now, but we'll add that in the follow-up email that goes out from here. Okay, let's see. I think there's a few more questions on here. Okay, sorry, it's not another question. Okay, are there any other questions that anybody wants to ask? Let me see what else I got in here. Yeah, okay. Nope, just more questions coming in, and many of them have already been asked. Okay, then I have, let's see, nope, no more questions. Here's what I have. I have a question for everyone else. Some of you, we were asking if your chamber is using the Florida scorecard for the county tractor, and we didn't know about it. We wanted to make sure we heard about that. Some of you have sent me notes, and I should have been more clear about this. Some of you have sent me notes saying that your chamber has been using the scorecard for well over a year, and you're exactly right. We appreciate all of you who do that. I should have clarified at the beginning, in addition to the floridascorecard.org, we added the county level COVID-19 tracker, and then we provided essentially some code for you to add the COVID-19 county tracker to your site. And so I apologize that I didn't make that clear, the difference between them, and we certainly appreciate all of you who full-time use the floridascorecard.org. And then I think my last question for everyone is, if your chamber is in fact posting the regular COVID-19 data and we don't know it, if we didn't show you as one of the chambers that's using it today, would you please make sure that we know it? Because through our repurposing #ChamberStrong with your chamber, and also in terms of us trying to show our members which local chambers are fully engaging in this, we obviously don't want to miss anybody. Let me see if I have any last questions that came in before we adjourn for the day. Yep, some of you are asking if we can send out the COVID-19 scorecard, how to do that. There's instructions in the deck that we'll send you, but also, Bill, in the update I send out today, I'll add as a bullet point exactly where to go to get your county's scorecard. And also, Dr. Parrish, I have a few chambers saying to remind everybody that you are going to be their guest speaker in the next week or two. So I know you have many of those on your calendar, and want to thank all of our local chamber partners who've either had me or Jerry or one of our teammates work with your membership. Obviously, we can cover a lot more ground using Zoom or another one of those technologies than we can traveling. So we certainly appreciate being asked to do that. Let me see here. Okay. Well, listen, everybody, I want to thank you. I'm going to give you some time back. Keep in mind, it's a really big week. We just received word that the governor's going to be in Miami at noon. I mentioned that at the top of the call for what his office calls a major announcement. It's at the local library. And so we'll be watching that, and we'll actually update you when we send out this presentation later today on that as well, and as well as tomorrow morning's email. Florida's going to be sending humans back into space tomorrow, weather permitting. And then the next day we have in-person cabinet meeting, which should be pretty interesting. It's a presidential year, so, you never know what's going to get talked about there. And then Thursday, we also have our statewide child care webinar talking about how can chambers work together to help solve our child care dilemma in our country and in our state. And then Friday, obviously, we'll be doing our statewide webinar where we'll be wrapping up everything that happened during the week and try to give some guidance to our members. So thanks, everybody. I appreciate what you're doing. Keep on sending us examples of what your chambers are doing on the front lines, whether it's a video, whether it's a social media strategy that you have, whether it's the COVID-19 tracker. And again, want to thank everybody for your time today. Until next time, take care. Be safe.